Okay then guys, strap yourselves in. This is going to be quite a long video on what's currently taking place with Ripple and thus XRP, but I promise you it's going to be worth watching right the way through to the end. This is going to be one of the best videos, I believe, on the internet right now, not only keeping you guys up to date with recent announcements coming out of the XRP ecosystem. For example, we're going to be starting the video off looking at the fact that the Ripple case has been dropped from the SEC website. We'll be talking about what they're doing with Ondo Finance in regards to bringing Treasuries to the XRP ledger. We're also going to look at the fact they've just been granted a money transition license over in New York. This is a big milestone. And this is all leading into what XRP is essentially going to enable, the Internet of Value. We are going to be talking about that. We're going to be looking also in doing all of this at how XRP is going to revolutionize money as we know it and the financial system, which has a massive debt element to it. We'll be referring to what David Sachs had to say over on, I think it was CNBC or Fox, one of the two. We'll look at that. We've already looked at that, but we'll be bringing it up because it's very relevant in regards to some of what's been spoken about today on a Twitter space. Good Morning Crypto doing some great coverage of that. We're going to be looking at some takeaways he's brought. And then when Brad Garlinghouse speaks about the Internet of Value that's being enabled, that we know we're moving towards, we're going to be going right the way back to 1999, where Peter Thiel, who invested in Ripple, helped to found Ripple and invest in it in the early days through Altcoin, which then subsequently became Ripple, spoke about this Internet of Value a long time ago. And XRP is enabling all of that. This cannot be understated in regards to the colossal nature of what is being undertook here. And then we'll finish things off with a little bit of price action. So we've got a hell of a lot to get into, guys. Strap yourselves in. Share this video around. Clip it if you want, if any other content creators are watching. And we really don't mind. Let's kick things off with going to the US Securities and Exchange Commission website. This is from Jack the Rippler. You're all definitely familiar with him. Big Twitter account. Boom! Ripple and the civil action against it have been deleted from the SEC website. Now, there's been nothing official thus far, but it's very likely, certainly given the new regulatory regime, the new SEC chairman, Paul Atkins, today, the Treasury, Scott Bessent, was officially announced and sort of sworn in over at the Treasury. It's very likely this will get dropped. And this potentially is the first of many steps. And before we dive into, and this is just broke today, guys, a few hours old. Before we dive into everything, let's go and take a look at what David Sachs, the crypto and AI czar, had to say over on Fox, specifically in regards to stablecoins, why he believes in them and what he thinks they're going to do. And XRP, now that we know a central bank there's an executive order to never allow a central bank digital currency. Ripple's real USD essentially is that. It's just not ordered by... it is a CBDC, essentially. It's just not produced by the central bank. They're the same thing. We are moving towards this kind of digital financial prison, I'm afraid, guys. XRP does play a role in that. I have to be truthful, but there is a investment opportunity here. Some people would say you're investing in your own demise, but, this is life. So let's look at what David Sachs had to actually say on stablecoins on the back end of those executive orders specifically. They did three major things: regulations, stablecoins, and of course the digital asset stockpile, which XRP is likely to be a part of. Bitcoin Max is literally crying their eyes out on the back end of all this. Then we'll get into them furthering that endeavor, Ripple today, with what was announced with Ondo Finance and also the money transmitter license. And then we'll talk about what's been announced on today's space with Brad and Chris. So let's get into that.
What type of guidelines are you looking to put out?
Yeah, so a few areas. So number one, market structure. We need to define what is a security, what's a commodity, what's a digital asset or collectible. So there's a few different categories here. So defining the market structure is important. Second area is stable coins. I think stable coins are a really interesting area. It gives us the opportunity to extend the dollar's dominance internationally. We can basically create a digital dollar that people all over the world will use. And then the third area that we're going to look at is we're evaluating this national stockpile for digital assets. We haven't created it yet, but we're going to study that issue. Well, CBDCs are a real threat to freedom and liberty. What you're talking about there is moving to a central bank digital currency that would be run out of Washington by the Fed and would basically gradually replace cash and catalog everybody's transactions, and it could lead to new laws and dictates about how people spend their money. So I think people are very concerned that that could be an Orwellian path to go down. No one wants to go down that path, and I think we can create stablecoins, basically digital dollars, without doing that. So the executive order is really clear. We want to create a regulatory framework for stablecoins, but we don't want to go down the path of CBDCs.
But a digital currency for a government could be competition to Bitcoin. Did that play into that decision?
Well, I mean, any government can create a stable coin. So, but I think the U.S. Dollar is already the world's reserve currency. So I'm not really worried about competition there. I just want to extend, or I believe that what we should be doing is extending the dollar's dominance into digital areas, extend it online. And I think that could actually create trillions of dollars of demand for U.S. Treasuries. It could be really useful to us in basically supporting our debt and also bringing down long-term interest rates.
So that can't be understated in regards to what he just said there. No CBDC. So who's going to digitize the dollar? Are they just not going to digitize it? No, they're going to go to a company like Ripple and utilize technologies like XRP to do so. The writing is on the wall, guys. Okay, yeah, he didn't specifically say we're going to use Ripple, but you've only got to do a little bit of homework in regards to all of this, and you'll see Ripple in that kind of central position to essentially enable all of this. Talking about treasuries, Ripple and Ondo Finance are bringing OUSG, tokenized US treasuries, to the XRP ledger with 24/7 minting and redemption using real USD. Unmatched liquidity and institutional grade security. Learn how this partnership marks a major step forwards for on-chain real-world assets. Now, their stablecoin is already and is going to increasingly become backed by treasuries. And we're going to democratize that market. We're going to digitize the dollar. And there's this kind of Brent Johnson dollar milkshake theory that's likely going to take place. The dollar will rule them all, I believe, even though it is a fiat currency. And actually, you know, he also talks about the fact that Bitcoin is not a threat to this. And that's where the Bitcoin maxis fundamentally get things wrong. Also, we had the crypto momentum in the US report. What's next for Ripple payments? Now, you can see down here, Ripple, the leading provider of digital asset infrastructure for financial institutions, literally, has recently secured key monetary transmitter license, MTLs for short, in New York and Texas, two states where Ripple has seen strong demand for real-time global payments from both banks and crypto businesses, bringing the total to more than 50 money transmitter licenses. Texas and New York have defined regulations and stringent licensing requirements with robust compliance standards and regulatory oversight. And of course, they have over 60 licenses globally. This is a big deal. Today, there is actually a space taking place where Brad talks about, you know, people are a little bit concerned with XRP and, of course, tokenization and the differences here, or real USD and the differences with XRP. He clarifies that on a space today. We'll look at that. We'll dive over to a video that we were lucky enough to film with Archax, and then we'll proceed the video and actually talking about the internet of value, then what Peter Thiel had to say in 1999, and then we'll finish things off with a little bit of price action. So let's dive into Brad Garlinghouse on a space just today, reported by Good Morning Crypto. Do go and give him a follow. Great guy to follow.
The different use cases between RLUSD and XRP. Maybe can you double click there and explain or summarize how do you see different individual use cases with one and the other?
Yeah. First of all, I think this is important to understand the difference because some misinformation, as again, back to the tribalism point, some people I think misinterpreted, our view. We remain completely committed to the XRP ecosystem for a whole bunch of reasons. It's an incredibly efficient blockchain, and obviously we own a lot of XRP. We are totally committed. As a reminder, XRP is the native token on the XRP ledger. It's required for gas, reserves, accounts ledger, but simply put, XRP is needed to use the XRP ledger. For Ripple and how we use it in our go-to-market as a cross-border payments, we use it as a bridge asset. It's very, very, very fast and nearly free for kind of per transaction basis. And we use it globally, and where currency conversions are less popular, if there's less liquidity, and that way it can complement a stable coin. So moving to the other side, Ripple has used stablecoins for years, and we were using Tether, we were using USDC, and as time went by, we kind of asked ourselves, well, given how we at one point we said publicly we were minting 20% of all USDC, And so we kind of asked ourselves, well, wait a minute, could we participate in this market? And I think, while we probably will still use other technologies at various points, I think we felt like there's a real role for us to play here. And look, stable coins are required for on-chain payments. And as more and
Mhm.
more assets get tokenized on the XRP ledger, I think stable coins are going to be required. And that's partly evidenced even by the Ondo announcement from earlier today.
Exceptionally interesting. Now, 6 months ago, we interviewed Archax founder Graham Rodford, sorry, who gave us an exclusive peek at what the future may hold in regards to this concept of actually using different forms of value for payments. Of course, money market funds was one. Money market funds essentially are just debt instruments, which is what they're doing with Treasuries, and this is what the future looks like. We'll play that before we dive into the next clip of Brad Garlinghouse. Then we're going to talk about Peter Thiel and wrap it up.
And what I see happening in financial markets right now is this question about what you can use for payments coming up a bit more, because ordinarily we would use cash to pay for things. We might send cash via bank accounts, but if we were settling any form of financial transactions, we'd use cash. And what we've seen with the tokenization of money market funds, starting with stable coins, like what is it, 130, 150 billion, something like that. Those guys are earning interest on other people's money, but it's being used for such a lot of transactions. Actually, people are starting to pay attention now. I think more volume went through Tether than Visa the other month. So these things are starting to become important. And then I think some of the people that run money market funds are kind of going, oh, hang on a second. If I put my money market fund on chain, I can be used for transactions, much like stable coins, but actually let the user keep some of their yield. And I get quite interested around that point. This idea that why would you have cash? Why would you take bank risk and have something which is usually lower yielding and not even paying you base rate for a standard bank account? If I could be holding a money market fund and whoever would accept it as some form of payment. Now there's a lot of regulation that exists around whether this is possible or not. There's a lot of friction doing AML KYC on everyone that holds a security. But this idea that it can be used for a payment. So one of the attractions of Ripple is, they've kind of majored on payments for a long time. So just seeing if there's a way that we can integrate payments on XRPO into their payment network is pretty interesting for me.
I don't think I can overstate enough just what that broadly means, because we're moving towards this internet of value where value has more than one form. We know that generally in life, but there's only one sort of preferred form of transacting, and that's fiat currencies. So not only is Ripple completely revolutionizing fiat through digitization of it, it's also revolutionizing the debt markets and how financial markets typically work through restructuring the debt markets and reutilizing them. And it's also coming up with different forms of payments that open avenues to different forms of markets and investments. And we're now going to dive over to a clip of Brad Garlinghouse talking about the internet of value. And then we'll finish things off with what Peter Thiel had to say back in 1999. Remember, Peter Thiel's founders fund founded Altcoin, which then became Ripple. People have got no idea what's here, guys, and how big XRP is going to become. And when we look at XRP's price, we can see what it's about to do, and it's all because of fundamentally what it is doing. Let's dive into this.
And how has that evolved today?
So, it is, coming up on my 10-year anniversary, and by coincidence, I had breakfast this morning with the gentleman who ran engineering in the earliest days of Ripple, guy named Chris Kanaan, who's an all-star. And we spent some time reminiscing. And look, for me, joining Ripple, I think a lot of people want to be a part of putting their own dent in the universe and whatever that looks like. It's a kind of quote from Steve Jobs years back. And the vision behind Ripple, and first meeting with Chris Larson, one of our co-founders, the vision around an internet value, an internet of value, is it resonated with me deeply. And it was one of these things where you're like, okay, this makes sense. It makes the world a better place. And the challenge is, of course, when you talk about these big, impactful visions, is where do you start? Like, how do you get step one? And I've used the comparison of, every marathon, takes a first step. And the challenge is like getting the momentum moving in the right direction. And I think one thing I talked about over breakfast is like the momentum now is stronger than it's ever been. And I think Ripple, as well as the XRP community, is in a stronger place than we've ever been. Look, I think everybody has felt the frustration, and I certainly chief amongst them, of the headwinds. But look, from a whole bunch of different ways, I find that we're in this just unbelievable, powerful spot now, and 2025 really could be an amazing year. And I mean that. We talked yesterday about some of the new licenses we have. We have obviously invested a lot globally in licensing. We have over 60 licenses around the world. Uh, we're very focused in 2025 on some of the real world asset tokenization. We announced Ripple and Ondo Finance are working together around tokenized US Treasuries and bringing those to the XRP ledger. I just think that, again, back to my macro point, people are still underestimating how, when the largest economy in the world shifts from negative to positive, how that's going to change some of these things. And through a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill, Ripple finds ourselves in a really good position in that regard. And I think that certainly is catalyzing and positive for the whole XRP community.
Everything is changing, guys, and Ripple are actually going to play that key role, and the XRP ledger is going to be the technology to do it. Not only, again, are they changing money, they're changing the financial system, how it works through debt and the reutilization of it. They're actually changing how value moves, and actually we're going to see more than treasuries, more than currency. We're going to see assets and value in which is the hundreds of trillions actually onboarded onto XRP's ledger. And why? Because it makes things more efficient, just like most business today is done on the internet. And everybody uses it. Similar thing is coming for this technology, guys. And I can't overstate that enough. And actually, this was Peter Thiel's vision back in 1999. And he was one of the individuals that founded, or at least funded, the foundation of OpenCoin, which became Ripple. Let's dive into that. Back in 1999.
Money altogether going from digital dollars, from any kind of government-backed currency to purely private currencies. And what a private currency, or what private money, I think, fundamentally means is that there is no medium of exchange. You exchange value for value rather than exchanging value for something the government says has value for value. And whenever you have this intermediate step of the government saying something has value, that's where you have the subterfuge, the sort of legerdemain come in, the game of musical chairs, where every now and then a chair gets pulled out, and it turns out that you're the one holding a dollar bill that's all of a sudden become worth a little bit less. And the kind of exchange of value for value, the classic model would have been some sort of a barter model. That obviously has enormous transaction costs associated with it. These transaction costs go down in a digital age. And the kind of model that I think is the most likely to take place is one where you have other kinds of financial instruments that are very, very liquid. The one I would cite in the US would be something like an index on the S&P 500, or some sort of generalized stock market index, where instead of having currency as being the place where you have value, it is in real property, real companies, things that actually have real value. And so that you might conduct business by trading not dollars, but trading little slivers of the S&P 500 or of particularly large stocks like Microsoft or something like that. My guess is that it might be the whole stock market as a whole, and that as you trade these things, that's where you have the kind that becomes in effect a de facto currency.
That's the world that we're moving towards. First, government currencies, which they're doing. Then government vehicles like treasuries of value, which they're doing. And then more broadly, value entirely. And that's the internet of value. And XRP is going to be at that front and center position, enabling all of that. I don't think people realize how big of a deal that is. I truly don't. What I want to do now, guys, is finish things off. And we've even got the thumbs up from the old MacBook here with a little bit of price action. Exceptionally interestingly, technically, this is all signal. Just like back here, we were telling you guys something major is coming. We've had that break now. Everyone's on the XRP bandwagon. Well, we're 500% up on XRP already. I've got an entire community of people that are also on that journey. It is what it is. And you guys can embark by becoming a Patreon. Do check the link in the description. We're growing rapidly. We will cap it eventually, and we're launching new platforms and stuff. So the big term pattern is taking us this big wedge forming since 2017 to $19.27. And actually on the smaller time frames, we've just got continuation pattern after continuation pattern after continuation pattern that we've kept you up on. Despite yesterday's deep seek dip, look at that for a buy. This is ultimately just going to end up being continuation once again. And we did say $4.30 is next, then $11.26, then $19, and then potentially above and beyond. So what we have is this fundamental shift technologically that Ripple is pioneering with XRP. and also technically an amazing trajectory ahead from a price point of view, confirming one another. Remember, Ripple is still to go public. There's so much I'm not even covering in this video that we know. Guys, share this around. I hope you watched it in full. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next one.